OP06 Wings of the Captain, the upcoming expansion for the One Piece trading card game, has so many people excited, not only from a collecting perspective with all of these special arts, beautiful illustrated cards as usual in the One Piece trading card game, but also for players, lots of new archetypes coming into play in the format, but also, you know, some upgrades to your arts for some of these reprinted special arts, and plenty of new cards to improve previously made decks. But unfortunately for that, you may be in a position like me where you can't really justify paying over $200 for a booster box of this set. So a lot of people like myself are probably going to buy a lot of singles in this set primarily. So I've compiled this video to give you a sort of buy list, cards that I think you should buy and what numbers as well. I've broken this down into three categories. I've got tier 1 cards that I think are really good. They appear in multiple decks or are huge parts of tier 1 decks that you definitely should get. I've got tier 2 as well that are either cards that kind of have waved in and out of the Eastern meta through OP06, EB01, and OP07. Oh, also ST13 as well. Or maybe they're cards that, like, they're pretty good cards, and I really just think that, you know, if they print like one more card, this card will pop off. Pretty much like the Eustace Captain Kidd situation. And then we have tier 3, you know, cards that if you want to build a Hody Jones deck, here are the cards that you need to build a Hody Jones deck. I'll leave it at that. I've also put together a Google Excel spreadsheet to where you can, in the description below, view this for your own pleasure. If you want to like save it or something, not take notes this entire video, maybe reference it when you're trying to buy cards. But let's just get into it. We got some cards to talk about. The first one we're going to talk about in the tier 1 section is Raise Max. Raise Max is basically a reprint of Gordon, a more accessible version of the Gordon promo that we've seen in old Roanoke Zoro lists, now Trafalgar Law red purple decks. And Trafalgar Law, starting with OP06, is going to continuously improve at a drastic rate. So make sure, if you especially want to play Red Purple Law someday, because in my opinion, Red Purple Law is a really cool deck, make sure you pick up 4 of these. They're also uncommon, so if you do get a booster box, you probably get like 2 or 3 of them, I would imagine. And then you can get the other one for pretty cheap off your buddies. Now going into this Arlong. So this Arlong, I mean, obviously you want to play it in like a Hody Jones deck like I was talking about, but especially in the beginning of OP06 format, we saw Yamato's playing this card, and Yamato had an insanely strong opening in the OP06 format. I think it's a very popular deck. There are different ways to build Yamato, but I personally like this Fishman Pirates version, especially with this on play effect, being able to freeze, saying that they can't attack, and then that trigger as well, resting 4 cost or lower characters, is pretty good in my opinion. So this is really just a Yamato card, but I like Yamato a ton in this upcoming format, so definitely want to pick these up. It's also an uncommon. Now into Hody Jones, staying in the Yamato conversation. This is the reason, one of the big reasons why Yamato is so strong, and it's crazy that Yamato can play this card. Yamato with the double attack is so good, as we know, and this card as a closer in the game with that on play effect of resting 2 of your opponent's characters, or Dawn with Rush, 8,000 power, and then probably because you're using it as more likely in end game, going for lethal kind of situation, you're going to be able to use Yamato leader effect to attach 2 Dawn to it, so it's swinging 10 Rush after resting 2 of your opponent's blockers. That's actually insane. You absolutely need a playset of this card. Even if you don't plan on playing Yamato, like getting a playset of this, because even if you like buy it when release and then, you know, you sit on it for a long time, this card is going to be honestly a stonks card. It's just so good. Now with Ryuma, with that on play on KO effect in the Land of Wano Thriller Bark Pirates cards. If you want to play Perona, this is a really good card to get. It's a really good card in the format, especially with that on KO effect. Really just kind of threatens your opponent overall, and especially with the synergy of stuff like the 8-drop Gecko Moira, which we'll get to later. You can really utilize that on play-o effect in a ton of different situations. Buy 4 of this card for sure. Charlotte Pudding now. Charlotte Pudding is a card that, especially once OP07 comes out, we will see a ton more of this card. Might not see the Big Bomb Pirates 4-cost character right away, but that shuffle your opponent's hand and have them draw 5 cards is really, really good at resetting a hand that has been constantly filtered or maybe built up, especially with something like Anel or even something like Nami, to be honest. This is a pretty good card. You may not see its impact right away, but I guarantee you the list that I've been seeing with all the blue decks running around in OP07, you're gonna need this card, so might as well just get it now while it's easy as a rare. All right, Tashigi. Now, we may not have too much longer of Sakazuki that is able to be played, but for the time being, as you know, just a rare, a 1-drop rare, yeah, you need this card. Sakazuki, just about every Sakazuki I think plays this card alongside the brand news. Just really helps with the consistency engine of grabbing more cards, especially on a 1-Dawn turn, is really, really good because you can use leader effect to cycle 1 card and then use Tashigi to essentially look at 6 cards on your first turn instead of 1 like you used to. Tashigi is a no-brainer in my opinion to get 4 of. Get your Tashigis. Now we've got Amano Murakumo. I think in English, like the official card says Amano Murakumo Sword, but this is from Batsu's OPTCG sim. That's where I get all the pictures of my cards, so shout out Batsu. Amano Murakumo is a really, really good card in Sakazuki as well, but it's one of the few cards that I recommend you only really need 2 of, in my opinion. Now, if you buy a booster box, you're probably getting 2 or 3 of these as is because it is an uncommon, but I've honestly seen Sakazuki players even knock this card down to 1 instead of 2. It's essentially the Rob Lucci effect, but bottom decking cards as an event. And it's just really, really good. And I mean, especially because Sakazuki, in my opinion, is the best deck in format in OP06. A lot of people are going to be playing Sakazuki, and so a lot of people are going to need this card. So make sure you pull them or just buy them because they're probably going to be cheap. Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. Now, this is another card just like Charlotte Pudding where I see it a lot more right now in OP07. This is a Navy rare. Doesn't seem really that good right now. Nobody really plays it in OP06. But as time will go on, as we move farther and farther away from the release of OP06 in the future, this card is going to see more play. It's a crazy card, to be honest. I think who is it, RJ, I think, has put out a video that's like, oh my god, this card is so broken. So you can go ahead and get 4 of these. I think I've seen Liz play 4 of these. Now, there's only one reason you get this card, White Snake, and it's because if you play Nami. If you're playing Nami, this card is so good for the deck. It's a huge boost for the deck. Not saying that it's going to be a tier 1 deck, right? It's not going to be best deck in format. It's going to become more of a viable deck than it was in the previous format of OP05. So if you want to play Nami like myself, this is probably one of the cheapest decks to add to and be able to have, like, quote unquote, the best version if you were playing it in OP05. So definitely want to get 4 of these, especially if you're playing Nami. Now, the next series of cards that I'm going to show you are the different Vinsmoke family cards. The Reiju Vinsmoke deck is really, really cool, in my opinion. We've showcased a game on the channel of it, and in OP07, especially with Sakazuki getting banned here pretty soon, I actually think this deck gets a ton better and much more viable. It's honestly one of the decks that I think personally gets the biggest boost of the ban restriction list update. So all these cards are going to be tier 1, and I'll rattle them off real quickly and give you the numbers on them, because actually in this, Some of the numbers really vary. The Reiju Vinsmoke family deck, a lot of the deck lists that I've seen have the same counts of cards in the archetypes. So starting off with the Ichi-Gs, both the small one and the big one, you're going to want a full play set of. The Vinsmoke Judge, though, I would say 2. I don't think I've really seen much more than 2, and some of the people, especially on that Reiju Vinsmoke video, a lot of you guys kind of left comments because I posed the question of like, what's the best way to use Judge? Because it seems like a more complex card than what it just reads on the card. And a lot of you gave some really great feedback, so thank you for that, because I was curious. You really only need just 2 of these. Now, with the Sora, though, the Sora as a 2K, you might as well just grab 4 of those. And then the Nijis, I've seen a lot of places as just a 3 lines, so just get 3 each of these guys. And then the Yonjis, you just need 2 of those in this deck. But the most important card of the deck, in my opinion, because it's played in other archetypes as well outside of the Reiju Vinsmoke blue purple Germa 66 deck, is the Reiju Vinsmoke card. You want a 4/4 split of both of these characters, especially the SR. The SR, the one on the right side, is the what I would consider the most important card of this group, because it's played in Red Purple Law, it's played in this. I think I've seen it in a couple other like more random purple decks that I've seen. Like I think there was a King list. I don't know if it played it, but like I remember in the OP06, OP07, when I was looking at the different archetypes on OnePieceTopDecks.com, there was a King, there are some purple Luffys, especially in OP07. Purple Luffys got kind of like more stonks actually, which is kind of interesting, and just some other cool decks, so be on the lookout for that. Oh, also sticking with this, because I almost forgot about like the stadiums, the Germa 66 event card and the Germa Kingdom stadium card. Obviously you want those, you need those in the archetype of the Reiju Vinsmoke family, so get 4 of them. Now going into the black cards, Absalom, that Thriller Bark Pirates is one that you want. Absalom is a very instrumental card in the Gecko Moira decks, as a lot of these cards that we're going to talk about in black are very heavily focused on Thriller Bark Pirates. Also can be played in Perona as well, a lot of these. So Absalom in here, definitely want a play set of those to start out, but also you definitely want a play set of what I would consider to be the strongest card in the set, the Gecko Moira 8-drop. Gecko Moria. I know the YouTube comments, you guys flame me sometimes on pronunciations. I'm not that far in the anime yet. But this 8-cost 7 Warlords of the Sea Thriller Bark Pirates character is so good. It's played in almost every single deck that has at least half black in its color typings. It's an automatic 4 of, you definitely want them. Honestly, even if you don't plan on playing like a black deck, you still want these cards, because if you ever want to play a black deck, as long as this card is not banned or restricted, it's got potential to go in literally any black deck. I'm sticking by that statement. Moving into now Dr. Hogback. Now, I will say that Gecko Moira, I feel like, is probably an OP06, like a close second best deck in the format. Could be third, kind of battling with like Enel and stuff. That second and third place spot really just switches, I think, depending on the rest of the meta that's at the event, I feel like. But anyways, Dr. Hogback is definitely a 4 of in the deck. Just really, really good to be able to grab any Thriller Bark Pirates card into your hand. Could be really good if you trash like a Gecko Moira really early. Off like this next card that we have in here, as I'm trying to pull it up, Victorious Sindri, right? A really good turn 1 card for the Gecko Moira deck, trashing just a ton of cards. If you trash like 3 8-drop Gecko Moiras, I don't know, I'm thinking worst case scenario, you can use Dr. Hogback to get that card back. So synergizes really well together. I enjoy this combo. Definitely think for both of those, you get 4 of them. Now going into Brook, so I've really only seen Brook played in Perona decks. I haven't seen it in like Gecko Moira or Sakazuki or stuff like that. So with the OP06 Brook, I've really only seen 3 of them in Perona decks. So if you're really just trying to save as much money as possible and being as minimal as possible, I've never seen a deck play 4 of these cards. So you could get away with buying 3 of them in your decks. But honestly, because it's just a rare, it's just a regular rare, not like a super rare or secret rare or something like that. If you got a couple, if you got like $1 more or something like that, you could get 4 of them. Now, Perona is an automatic 4 of in the tier 1 category because Perona has so many different options. It's played in so many decks because not only is it a 2K, right, it synergizes really well with that 8-drop Gecko Moira, like I mentioned. It's a 5,000 power character, so if it sticks, it's ready to attack right away. And with that on-play effect, having 1 of 2 options if your opponent has 5 or more cards in hand, which more than likely they do. I think the only deck that probably wouldn't is like the Emporio Ivankov or whatever. This is a staple in a ton of different decks. Really, really strong card, one of the best in the set, and as an SR is gonna be pricey, so might as well get it now before, you know, product is super hard to find and there's not more circulating, and so they just skyrocket. I keep looking at Kid. Even though it's always going to be priced more than Kid was in the beginning of its life, I'm sure of it. Now moving into the yellow cards, we have Onami. So Onami, another one of those, like, these are like top cards of the set kind of deal. Onami with that banish is so good in so many different yellow decks. The Enel, Katakuris, I think even play this. Yamato specifically, think about giving double attack banish. I can't believe they printed both of those cards in the same exact set with the same color, but just really, really good. And as well as the trigger, this is a no-brainer 4 of, in my opinion. All right, so if you know me and you know this channel for a while, I've been calling this card Okiku because was the One Piece Top Deck's translation of the card, but it's apparently Kikunojo. I will probably never call it that, so I apologize in future videos and right now. But this is also a 4 of, much like Onami. This is an insanely strong card. So many yellow decks are playing this, especially with Yamato, right? Because Yamato, if it gets a double attack hit, which it probably will at some point, you're either going to be at 2 or 3 life right away at the beginning portions of the game. And so if one of these Kikunojo, I almost said Okiku again, even though I'm looking right at the name, if you have one of these Kikunojos in life, it's going to be able to be played. So the really, really strong card, really, really good card, and definitely want 4 ofs. And so continuing in the Wano country, Kozuki Hiyori, the sister of the 2 that we'll talk about in here. Hiyori is another kind of auto inclusion in a lot of these yellow decks as a 2K counter. So definitely want to pick up these SRs. They're probably going to be decently priced, just like the Moira and the Perona. I wish you luck on pulling these. The brother though, Momonosuke, apologize if I'm not pronouncing that right. This is one of the cards that you don't necessarily need 4 of. I've pretty much seen every list that plays this card, specifically like Yamato, for example, only plays 2 of this SR. So especially if you're trying to save money, you can get away if you want to play the Yamato with just having only 2 of these cards. Nekomamushi, though, this uncommon, you want 4 of, and especially with that trigger right there, similar as Kikunojo. In Yamato, your opponent's going to be at 3 life or less really, really fast, so that trigger is going to activate and you're going to be able to play that card. Go get it. It's really good. And also just that 2x character attacking actives is really good, I feel like, for Yamato specifically, being able to use that leader effect. Now, for the events on yellow, you're the one that should disappear. I think this is definitely a 4 of. This is, I mean, just about every single yellow deck can play this card. 0 cost, trash 1 card for plus 3,000 is really, really good, and yellow finally having its option is definitely something that you want to pick up as a rare, especially after this card gets banned. And honestly, even though this card is going to get banned and out of format in Japan and most likely in English as well, you still want 4 of this, because in OP06 you're gonna want 4 of them in your Nell decks. And you know, like Katakuri I think even plays this too, but it's specifically Nell, you're gonna want 4 of these. It's that good of a card, even though you know it's gonna get banned soon. And let me tell you, just like I said in my Market Watch video, after it gets banned, buy this card, because it'll probably eventually maybe get unbanned. And now into the secret rares for tier 1, we have Zoro. So this Straw Hat 9 cost 9,000 power secret rare is so good. I've seen this card played in Yamato decks. I've seen this card played even in like Uta film decks, right? Because it's green. This is just a really, really good card. Sure, maybe more often than not, you're not gonna ever play this card, but with that 9 cost, if it sticks around for a turn, your opponent's in trouble. Literally, if this card is able to attack, you can swing 3 times at 9,000 power for 3 Dawn. Think about starting your turn, right? Having maybe several other characters on field, and you're gonna go for lethal. Attach 7 Dawn to Zoro and swing 16 3 times. Now, that may not happen a lot, but you understand what I mean, right? Like, this is a good card overall. Now, Shiraya is definitely a tier 1 card that you want in your decks. It's played in red, purple law, and then also scattered around a lot of different other decks as well, including the red black Sabo, right? And red black Sabo I think goes up with the Sakazuki band, so be on the lookout for that. I'm so hoping about that. And so definitely want to get a play set of these guys. I think this card, I mean, especially if film becomes much more popular and like red film becomes really, really good, this card is insane. This is such a cool card in my opinion. Now we're going to go into the tier 2 category. Now tier 2 again is a category that I see these cards in decks, but maybe like they were in these meta decks and then they got pushed out of these meta decks, maybe saw spurts, or potentially they're like staples in some not so great decks if you're someone that likes to play like off meta kind of stuff. And the first one we're going to talk about is Sanji. So I didn't see enough justification to put this in tier 1, but I think it's a really, really good card in something like Queen, for example, right? Because you play a bunch of 9 cost characters, and also that on play effect is just so good. Like, just like Zoro, it's got to be relevant, if not now, later, right? So this Sanji going to be a 4 of, I would say, because I have seen stuff like Queen and stuff play a 4 of this deck. If you're a Queen lover out there, definitely going to be the cheaper of the 2 secret rares in my opinion. So I guess if you're a Queen player, you're kind of thankful for that. Now talking about Denjiro. So Denjiro is weird. We saw Denjiro in some yellow decks at a very small spot in the format, and just really as like a 2 of in lists. It is an uncommon, so you can get 4 of them probably pretty easy if you wanted to, but if you're looking to, maybe you got all your tier 1 stuff that I had and now you're working into the tier 2, this is a good option to get for some yellow decks. Also mentioning this Inuarashi, hopefully I said that right. I could have sworn that I saw this in like Yamato decks, either in one of our videos or in lists that I've seen like on Twitter or One Piece top decks, but I couldn't find it. So I've made this tier 2 because I think it was just like a short spurt, maybe something we saw like once or maybe twice. Not very popular of a choice, more of like a tech card. Again, it's just like the Nekomamushi and the Okiku, where it's if that opponent is at 3 life or less, play the card. So with Yamato, really, really good. Definitely 4 of them. The Inoop, maybe a Inoop. I haven't made it to Thriller Bark. This is a card that I know that the Luffy TCG has been really, really high on as he's been testing the OP06 format on stream. And I think it's a really, really cool card. You do see this in some of the decks, so it's something that you potentially want to include with that on-play on KO effect of drawing and discarding with that hand filter. Works really, really good in something like a Gecko Moira deck specifically, because you get to like hand filter your hand and maybe like get some specific targets in the trash that you want in there, and especially with that synergy with the 8-drop could be nice. Also useful in Perona. This card, Hitokiri Kamazo, the Supernova Kid Pirates Smile type card. This is a 2K counter that I've seen a lot of people play, but also with that your turn once per turn, returning Dawn into your Dawn deck, KOing a character of a cost of 2 or less, could be really, really interesting if you decide to play this in certain situations, because if you're purple, more often than not, you're putting Dawn back at some point into your Dawn deck, so playing this card kind of makes sense for a lot of decks, but maybe primarily more used just for that 2K counter. All right, now we're gonna speed run these tier 3 cards because honestly this video is a little bit too long. So a lot of the Revolutionary Army stuff, it's interesting because we're seeing this more and more, especially like because you play them in Bello Betty, right? You might play some of them in Sabo as well, but more specifically with the inclusion of Monkey D. Dragon in OP07, that deck is playing these cards too. So even though it's not a best deck in format type of deal, it's scattered across a couple different decks. So I would say go get play sets of these cards. King Kong Gatling though is something that I've seen in Zoro decks. Actually, I've seen Zoro playing this card. So if you want to add on to your Zoro deck because you can't stop playing Zoro, it's me. I love playing Zoro. You'll want to get 3 of these at, well, minimum 2, but I would say 3 is pretty good. I don't think I've really seen anybody play more than 3. All right, these next several cards are Fishman Pirate cards, and so this is Hody Jones cards. If you're gonna play Hody Jones, you definitely need these, and so I'm gonna start off and rattle off the play sets first before moving into the other cards. So you've got Ikaros Munch, Kami, Daruma, Hammond, Vanderdecken the 9th, Wadatsumi. And now the only one that I've seen 3 of in a lot of these Hody Jones deck is Hyozu. So make sure you get at least 3 of those. And for the 2s, there's only 2 of the 2s. We got Zio and Dosun. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a 3rd one. There's Noah's Ark, the stadium, but that's not like, or stage, I think it's actually called in One Piece. I don't know, I've played a lot of Pokemon. Now, there's a couple blue cards that I would say, and one of them is Gion. So, Gion's really interesting, but I don't know who's playing it right now. It's a strong card, don't get me wrong, it's a good card, but I don't really think it has a good fit. So, honestly, I mean, you can tech this out, especially if you want to beat something like Nami, right? If you just really hate Nami that bad and you are so dedicated to beating Nami, sure, go ahead, play this card. It's a good card. Get 4 of them. I think it's probably safe to get 4 of them anyways, but they're probably just going to be sitting in your bin for a while. And the Suru's interesting because I think I've seen this in more niche blue decks with like Ivankov or the blue promo Monkey D. Luffy. So you may or may not actually use this card at all, which is why it's in tier 3, but it's included in those decks and you know they're included as 4 of, so Gion and Suru. Just go get them. Now the final 2 cards of this video, purple cards, Guild Tesoro and Shiki. These are cards that are included in different purple decks, like red purple Uta, for example, is playing these cards. I think there's a couple other purple decks like Iceberg and King, and well, maybe not King, purple Luffy, I think, as well, that's playing the Shiki at least. So since these two cards are appearing in a couple different decks, might as well just get play sets of both of them. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I apologize again that I'm probably not going to be getting a booster box or opening up a booster box of the set. I can't justify really doing it. Most of the videos that I have on this channel are not monetized, and I don't, even if I did get advertising dollars, it's not a lot. So it's like, a lot of this extra money goes to rent because I live in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas is expensive, especially because gas is going up. But yeah, as of right now, I'm working on the commentary recreation of the World Championship video, so hopefully that's up in the next couple days as well. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Tell me your polls too. Tell me your polls in OP06. What did you get in your pre-releases and everything? And I'll see you later.